City and town leaders in Beloit take the first step towards potentially consolidating fire and EMS services. WIFR's Miriam Niesmeyer talks with both interim fire chiefs about what this could mean for the future of both communities.
The town and city of Beloit's fire departments will take part in a non-binding agreement for a 6-month evaluation process to see if consolidating departments would benefit the communities in the long run.
The importance is both communities at all times during this consolidation study.
City and town leaders in Beloit move forward with a consolidation study that could shape the future of fire and emergency medical services.
The two departments have worked together very well for the last 4 or 5 years. Many of our residents maybe wouldn't have known that it was a Town of Beloit ambulance and a City of Beloit engine that was on their medical emergency.
On Monday, the proposal was unanimously approved by both the Town of Beloit Board of Supervisors and the Beloit City Council.
The main goal is to ensure that either there's a maintenance or an improvement in service levels and trying to control costs. Also, public safety, fire, EMS is really struggling with recruitment and retention.
Both departments say consolidating could help address financial and staffing issues.
That coming together to solve these problems just brings a lot of efficiencies and better operational outcomes.
For the next 6 months, both municipalities will report back findings to elected officials like response times, staffing, costs, and operations to see if consolidating is the best option.
Could be positive, could be negative. Either way, give it just a really good hard look and evaluation to see if this really does benefit both communities.
Interim Chief Farley says the department's top priority is to focus on both communities equally.
There is no difference. I mean, it's what we respond to a house fire with as a consolidated department is exactly that.
The City of Beloit and Town of Beloit will make sure the governing bodies and community residents are provided updates throughout the process.
Leaders say either community can walk away from the study at any time.